are deep in the heart of Texas, in Fort Worth, where just outside of town you can find the images of the Old West. And in those days, gymnastics may have meant calf roping or steer wrestling. Well, times have changed, folks, as we welcome you to the Fort Worth Convention Center. Today, NBC Sports presents the International 3-on-3 Gymnastics Championships. Hi, everybody. I'm Al Trautwig, along with Elfie Schlegel and U.S. Olympian gold medalist Tim Daggett. 3-on-3. How about an elaboration?
Well, Al, this is a real unique concept as far as team competition is concerned, and the whole idea behind 3-on-3 is teaming up an artistic male and female gymnast along with a rhythmic gymnast. Now, there may be one individual star on any of these teams, but the key to winning this event is balance among all three team members and depth.
Yep, so it's unique. And Tim, who's good at it?
Well, when Elfie mentions balance, you first have to look to the Russians, because nobody has more history of gymnastics than the Russian. Men, women, and rhythmic, they're very, very strong, going to be hard to beat. You cannot overlook the Ukrainians, however. Their secret weapon, they have the current world champion, Vitrichenko, but we are in America, and the secret weapon for the Americans, a guy named Blaine Wilson.
We will start by focusing on the team representing Ukraine. They bring in the woman who won last week's American Cup in this very same arena. They also bring with them the world champion in rhythmic gymnastics, Yelena Vitrichenko. Valery Goncharov, at the age of 20, is the least accomplished of the three. And Elfie, what is it that Yelena Vitrichenko brings that is so special to the event, aside from the relationship with her mom, who's her coach and a judge here?
Well, yes, coach and judge. They typically don't have enough money to travel an extra judge, so that is the reason why she is filling in those shoes. But with Vitrichenko, you're really seeing the best of the best. This woman has all the qualities that it takes to be a world champion, which she is. Remember, she was the bronze medalist at the 1996 Olympic Games, but what you should pay attention to is her incredible focus. Not only does she have the skills, but she really plays up to the judges. The music is from Cirque du Soleil. Tim talked about tradition in countries like the Ukraine and Russia. I was watching Vitrichenko warm up earlier before the event, and she was the only one warming up the ballet bar, which of course is extremely important for a routine like this.
Elfie, what are the essentials in this?
Well, some of the things the judges are looking for are difficult pivot turns. The balance is an important factor here. There's a turn showing great balance. That was an example right there. Also keeping the apparatus moving at all times.
One thing the rhythmic gymnasts are not used to is performing on a floor that has spring like this for the floor exercise in the artistic gymnastics. And there you have Yelena Vitrichenko, the reigning world champion. She is the first of the three competitors that will go representing Ukraine in this opening round that will narrow down the competition to the top four teams. Now, we will not hear her score until all three representatives have gone. And as she sits down looking like she's on a talk show set, we'll switch things over to Valery Goncharov. At the age of 20, he will be first up on the pommel horse.
And Al, as you mentioned, Valery is the least accomplished of this trio, but he is a very bright star for the Ukrainian team. On pommel horse, you're looking for repeated elements over and over again on one pommel, just like this, and he'll try to do it in combination. Traveling all the way to the end of the horse. Many of the men's scores that you'll see today and at all gymnastics competitions will be slightly lower than we've grown accustomed to. New code of points. Very, very difficult to get the 9/8s, 9/9s. A very good start for Valery, though, on the pommel horse.
What Tim Daggett is alluding to is the fact that many of the performances we'll see do not allow the gymnasts to get a 10 because they don't have enough of the required difficult elements in their routines. These days, if you see a 10, you're seeing something. This is Victoria Karpenko, 17 years old, from Ukraine. Last week, she became the first woman representing Ukraine to win the American Cup. How did she do it, Elfie?
And she did that in fine style. You know, she's following a very strong tradition. The last two Olympic champions came from the Ukraine, Tatiana Gutsu and Lilia Podkopayeva, who won in '96.
This is just awesome, uneven bar work. This skill right there, named after her.
Not only does she have the difficult skills, but it's the form. She never breaks form. She takes everything to an extreme amplitude.
Tough dismount plan, full twisting, double laid out somersault, lot to go on.
A very good start for Ukraine. Victoria Karpenko picking up right where she left off in the American Cup.
You know, she does this so easily. As I mentioned, her form was exceptional. She has all the big skills. This dismount, sky high, double layout with a full twist, no problem.
She's on a roll, and now let's check out the scores for the Ukraine team. First of all, Yelena Vitrichenko, a 9.980. That is a huge score. Victoria Karpenko on the uneven bars is also highly rewarded with a 9.65. Goncharov on the pommel horse, a 9.1. So they've set the bar in the opening round of our competition. Much more to come from Fort Worth.
NBC's Sports World is brought to you by Pert Plus, the shampoo that conditions too, for simply great hair, simply. And by Hershey, the great American chocolate company.
We're back in Fort Worth, Texas, as we continue with the International 3-on-3 Gymnastics Championships. Katerina Fokina of the Russian team, and they have a glorious past in the sport of gymnastics, as you well know. This team brings Anna Kovaleva with them, coached by the legendary Leonid Arkayev. More on him later. We've got in the middle Alexei Bondarenko, second in the American Cup last week, so he's on a roll. And the woman that we see here, and they talk about Katerina Fokina as a gymnast who made a major change in her career, going from artistic to rhythmic. The fact of the matter is, she did it when she was 6.
It was probably very traumatic for her, Al.
The stuff that kids in kindergarten have to put up with.
Now, Katerina is still an up-and-coming rhythmic gymnast in her country. She was only 7th at the national championships last year. But a couple of things that I should point out. She has amazing musical ability, which doesn't surprise me. All the Russians and Ukrainians do. But she also is known for her very difficult skills.
That had to be one of them.
Along with difficulty, you can see that panel of judges right there. I should quickly mention there are 2 panels of judges. One panel that judges composition, the other that judges execution. Scores out of 20, they divide by 2.
This is the opening round after each nation has competed. The scores will be tabulated. The top 4 move to the final round and start fresh.
As we mentioned, keeping the apparatus in constant motion is really key. The judges want to see a lot of creativity in these routines.
Well, there's some flexibility for you. Katerina Fokina at the age of 17 here in Fort Worth, Texas. We'll hear her score along with all 3 scores after the entire Russian team has competed. Now chalking up is Alexei Bondarenko. He'll be on the pommel horse.
You know, Al, after watching Fokina on the floor exercise there, reminds me of a comment Bondarenko made to me. He feels that men's gymnastics is not as artistic as it has been in the past. He feels that that's something that's lacking. He says he wants to bring that back to the sport. Very tricky element right here, all in combination. Now he does an extra circle on the end of the horse, so All of these elements do not connect. That'll cost them about 1/10 of a point. But this routine is jam-packed with difficulty, very, very tiring endurance-wise. Struggled a little bit, had some slight form breaks at the American Cup, just ran out of gas just a bit, but not today. Great exercise from Bondarenko.
Alexei Bondarenko and the pommel horse.
He is also coached by Leonid Arkayev, and so is this young woman, Anna Kovaleva. She's only 15, and there he is.
Truly the architect of the former Soviet Union, their gymnastics program, and the dominance that they held for so long in the sport.
We asked Arkayev how long he's actually been coaching. He said 25 years. I said, you're kidding. He goes, I know, I'm crazy. Absolutely crazy. But this young gymnast, Anna Kovaleva, he has high hopes for her, especially for the 2000 Olympic Games. He really feels she'll be one of the leaders.
Arkayev says she is, quote unquote, good in the head, mentally tough. Anna's from a little town outside of St. Petersburg, and Elfie, we've talked about this so often. When the music matches the geographical location of where a gymnast is from, it seems to match so perfectly. And St. Petersburg is a beautiful, happy city, and that's what this music sounds like. Just a little off.
Yeah, she's only been a national team member for 2 years now, and her coach had mentioned earlier that he feared she wasn't ready for this competition, that she didn't have enough international experience coming into the American Cup and the 3-on-3. But I'll tell you what, she's getting a lot of valuable experience.
And that is just amazing. You know, the athletes, they make it look so easy. That's part of the sport. But she just did a 2.5 twisting somersault right into a layout front. Very difficult.
I don't think there's any question that the Russian team is moving on to the final round. Fokina, the rhythmic gymnast, got a 9.730. Exactly. Anna with a 9.425. And Bondarenko gets a 9.40 on the pommel horse for a total of 28.555. Next up, the first of 2 American teams competing here in Fort Worth, Texas. And this is a team that's going to want to change the disappointment they felt in last week's American Cup. Christy Powell and John Roethlisberger both failed to reach the finals in that event, and they'll be joined by a 14-year-old rhythmic gymnast, the junior national champion, Kate Jeffress. We're back in Fort Worth, Texas. If you enjoy gymnastics, and I assume you do because you're with us today, join us for the International Team Gymnastics Championships on NBC April 11th. The United States, Romania, and China will be competing. Now the international 3-on-3 gymnastics competition continues with Kate Jeffress representing the United States. And at the age of 14, Elfie Schlegel, this is a very big competition for her.
Yeah, this is her first year as a national team member. She was a junior last year, actually did extremely well in '97, won the 4 continents, which is a big-time international competition. So this is the big time for Kate. The music is by Vivaldi from Four Seasons. This is Winter.
Maybe since we've seen the Ukraine and Russia, 2 powerhouses, you could point out what maybe the difference is in what she's presenting.
I think one thing you'll see off the bat is Kate works at a much slower pace. Watching Vitrichenko, and we'll see in other routines that she's very quick. You almost can't keep your eye on the hoop fast enough. She's always doing something. I think with Kate, it's well thought out, but this takes time. It's all the experience that she'll be gathering in the next few years with international competition. talking to her coach, Catherine Yakimovic, who's been coaching Kate now for 8 years. She said one thing that's really impressed her about Kate is her natural beauty and the feeling for the music. She has natural talent. She's very easy to work with. But one thing that she's had to work on extremely hard at is her ballet turnout, which of course we always see the Ukrainians and the Russians excel in that department.
Kate Jeffers from Rockville, Maryland. And once again, we will not have her score until all 3 of the Americans have competed. As we move through the first round, the top 4 teams will move on to the final round, and we'll have that later on in our coverage from Fort Worth, Texas. Next up will be John Roethlisberger of the American team. One moment, John was headed to the finals in the American Cup on rings. And the next moment, Tim Daggett, he's on the floor as disappointed as you can be, throwing his glove in anger.
Yeah, it really was very, very uncharacteristic of John Roethlisberger. He's one of the most steady performers the U.S. has ever had in men's gymnastics, and it definitely all fell apart at the prelims to the American Cup.
He's on the same apparatus.
This is the still rings where it all started to go wrong for John. And it happened on an element that's coming up right here. Very, very difficult, and a new element for John. He struggled with this. It's called a laid out Gudzogi. A lot of power. Oh!
It happened again.
It almost exactly what happened at the American Cup. Al, you have to have enough rotation so that your body can do those 2 flips and be able to get your rings out in front of your body, or else there's no way your arms, you see his rings are in back of his body, there's no way he can get the rings out in front quick enough. And basically he somewhat ripped off, and to be honest, he somewhat let go, because if he holds on right there, that's going to be very, very bad on his shoulders. Could be a serious injury. I can't believe that the same thing happened. This guy is such a veteran, such a competitor.
It's got to be a mental thing, right?
Well, I would have to say a little bit of that, no question about it. He just decided, or didn't get his ring, like I said over and over again, didn't get his rings out in front of him soon enough.
How frustrating.
And John picks up after the miss and finishes with the dismount. And he's totally dejected. The body language tells you that. In back-to-back competitions here in Fort Worth, the rings have failed him. Now Christy Powell. She shares John Roethlisberger's disappointment in the American Cup. She was supposed to be a lock to make the finals and maybe win.
And it was unbelievable prior to the competition when we talked to her. She was so up and geared for this event. She felt she was in the best shape ever. This is Christy's event, however. She excels. You've got to pay attention to her release skills right off the top here. She gets incredible amplitude.
Look at the height on this element right there. Beautiful bar work. Christy actually won the first day of competition on the uneven bars at the American Cup.
I thought she had some problems with her legs in the American Cup. She had compartment syndrome surgery in 1997, and then her legs won't come into play until the dismount here.
Double salto with a full twist. Yeah, this is her event. Nice job.
18 years old, now living in Cincinnati.
Hit a little extra swing. That was good, because you know what, nobody knows that.
Coach Mary Lee Tracy. Christy went to live by herself for this sport, and when she was 16, had her own apartment, paid the bills, amazing stuff. And she also got done with high school when she was 16, very together.
Great dismount here. The thing she does so well is she really waits to get this twist going, gets a complete flip done, then that full twist, just a small hop on the landing, but a great exercise.
Here are the scores for USA 1 in what I'll call rhythmastics. The rhythmic score of Kate Jeffers, a 9.665, and the rhythmic scores have been higher than the artistic ones. John Roethlisberger bumming out with an 8.65, and Christy Powell with a very impressive 9.70 that is applauded by her teammates. And one of the reasons is it puts the USA 1 team in 4th place, and that's what you want to do in this opening round, be in the top 4 to advance to the finals. The bad news for the USA 1 team is that the United States has a second team. Ukraine, Russia, France. Will the USA 2 team be able to challenge any of those scores? We shall see, but they definitely have one of the most prominent male gymnasts in the field. He's the top member of the American team, one of the best in the world, winner of last week's American Cup, Blaine Wilson. In the middle is Natalie LaCuesta, the U.S. national rhythmic champion, and they will be joined by Lindsey Wing of the American team in Fort Worth in a moment.
It's time for our second team.
You are looking at the one-time figure skater, now poet and rhythmic gymnast, the national champion in the United States, Natalie LaCuesta, who to me, Elfie Schlegel, looks a much more experienced person than a 16-year-old. She just carries herself so much older than that.
Very mature, and she's well suited for this sport. Very tall. Unlike Kate, her teammate, Natalie started off in ballet. She started when she was 3 years old and then made the jump to rhythmic at age 7. Now, I'm talking to her before the competition. She said her strength is her classical style from her ballet training. The music is by Ennio Morricone, titled "The Wind Does Cry."
This is the 3-on-3, and she is the first of 3 American gymnasts to perform on what we're calling USA 2, the second team. Only the top 4 will make it to the final round, and that's coming up.
Now, Al, like artistic gymnastics, rhythmic does have bonus points as well, but the judges are asking for a whole lot. They say you only get bonus points if you have exceptional amplitude in your movements, exceptional choreography, good use of the music with your movements, and absolutely no mistakes.
Oh, is that all?
That's it.
From Wilmette, Illinois, Natalie LaCuesta. We'll see how she did when all 3 Americans have competed. Next up, we're going to have the star of the American Cup. And, I mean, he just hit the ball out of the ballpark. A dominating blowout performance by Blaine Wilson. From Columbus, Ohio, he's now moved to Colorado, having finished his 4 years' worth of education at Ohio State.
Blaine says his best quality in all of gymnastics is that he hates to lose. I asked him that question. He told me that answer about 10 times in a row. I hate to lose. And he will rarely lose at all on the still rings. He is so strong. With the new rules, these positions perfectly level and held. There's your traditional iron cross. He makes it look so easy, 4 or 5 strength parts in a row.
Tim, I was really surprised that he mentioned he wanted to retire after the '96 Olympic Games. He says now it's new life. I could sleep in the gym. I could train 24 hours a day. I feel that good.
Well, you know, there's really almost nothing you can ever deduct on Blaine Wilson, just that small hop on the landing.
I'm so tired, I thought my leg was going to buckle.
Yeah, he just looked exhausted to me, Al. I don't know.
He's a perfectionist. This is Lindsey Wing, who had a very easy commute to work. She's from Cypress, Texas.
First time I saw Lindsey was last year at the international team competition. She was still a junior gymnast, and of course the nationals did fairly well there. But since then, her coach, Debbie Kajcek, said, I felt that I've overtrained her. They're really trying to back off and really focus in on consistency in practice, hoping it'll pay off in competition.
Yeah, Debbie also mentioned that 3 weeks ago, she was actually in better condition, better shape. She just got a little bit more tired as days went along. She's struggling right here.
Notice the small little form breaks from the toes, the knees. Small little deductions that add up.
End of the routine, not enough power to get through that exercise. Lands very short. Her chest all the way down by her legs. That'll be a significant deduction as well.
All right, so the USA 2 team is done. Let's go back and look at some of the work on the rings by Blaine Wilson. Look at the muscular definition in his upper arms.
And just watch his body. It is perfectly horizontal right there. Shoulders in the rings, legs equal to where the shoulders are. That is very, very difficult to do it exactly like that.
Cheshire Cat look for Blaine Wilson. All is good. Let's check on the scores now for USA 2. Natalie LaQuesta, the rhythmic gymnast, gets a 9.755. Lindsay Wing, a 9.10, and Blaine Wilson, a 9.7.
And you know, Al, that is a gigantic score for men's artistic gymnastics. No one's going to equal that.
USA 2 knocks out USA 1. They'll be in the finals, and we'll have that after these words from your local stations. Back in Fort Worth, Texas for the International 3-on-3 Gymnastics Championships. The Ukraine, United States, second team, Russia, and France all advancing to what is coming up now, the final round to determine the champion. First team we'll look at is the group representing France. Starring there is Elvire Teza, who won the American Cup in 1997. In the middle is part Arnold Schwarzenegger, all gymnast, and that is Dmitry Karbanenko. They are joined by Eva Serrano, the rhythmic gymnast who will perform now, Elfie Schlegel. And like the French artistic gymnasts have selected Chinese coaching, the women, to elevate their level, she is coached by a pair of Russians.
Bringing in the masters of the sport. As we said in the past with the Ukrainians and the Russian athletes, they are so well trained in the ballet department. They bring so much in the choreography department.
The first athlete that we see with a different apparatus, the clubs.
Of course, you can well imagine the difficulty because there are two. They always, again, have to keep both clubs in constant motion. Eva was 6th all around at the 1996 Olympic Games, and she was 7th at last year's World Championships.
It may not be the most popular sport in the United States, but every time I see it, I can't believe what I'm seeing.
And you know, these athletes are used to doing this style of competition in Europe. It's very popular over there, this 3-on-3 type of an event. Gymnasts are getting a little extra lift in their leaps because of the spring floor. The rhythmic gymnasts are not used to training or competing on a spring floor. Typically, it's just the carpet on cement or just plywood. Playing right to the judges.
With the clubs, that's Eva Serrano from France.
19-year-old Eva Serrano of France. And now we get to Hulk on the high bar, Dmitry Karbanenko, third in the American Cup last week. He once competed for Russia, now competes for France, and that opens up a whole debatable can of worms.
We've been talking about the coaches that have left their countries to travel all over the world and spread gymnastics knowledge. Well, the athletes have done the same. Dmitry, a great performer on high bar. He'll connect this element right here into a major release skill. I tell you, Al, a couple of years ago, that would have been thought to have been impossible. He does it again. Very, very difficult Kovacs release skill. Beautiful, elegant combination right there. Now this is a big guy. He is one of the biggest gymnasts out on the floor, and he makes a dismount like that look so easy.
Awesome.
No extra giant to give him some speed right out of a pirouette, triple back somersault.
Once Russian, now a French citizen. The question is, when the flag goes up, do you still shed a tear? Now let's go to Elvire Teza. Elvire had a very, very disappointing American Cup, Elfie.
Yeah, she won last year's American Cup, which was quite surprising, but this year really had a rough ride. But balance beam is her event. This was her best apparatus in the American Cup. No wonder she was 8th on beam at the 96 Olympic Games and 6th at the World Championships. But more importantly, she has a skill that is named after her.
And it comes up right here. This is amazing.
Always amazes me every time I see her do that.
It's like, how many times does she have to do that in practice?
We have to keep reminding people that that balance beam is only 4 inches wide.
With the rule changes, we used to see gymnasts doing 3 layouts in a row. Not going to see that anymore. This Kodo point encourages the athletes to showcase a variety of elements.
And that's been exciting because in the past we've seen a lot of gymnasts just play up on their strengths, which could be back tumbling or forward tumbling. Now we see a great deal more. Full twisting skill. That's incredible. Looking just a little tentative on what is her best event. Just the dismount. 2.5 twist. Little hop to the side. That would be a deduction.
Elvire Teza of France. And I think the French are headed to a very good score here. And we keep referencing, by the way, the American Cup. This is where Elvire Teza came to defend her title last week, and the athletes just stayed here to hold this 3-on-3.
And that is amazing.
What more can you say about that skill?
But look at it like this, and you'll see exactly what has to happen right here.
Timing.
Remarkable.
You know, that's someone who just wasn't content to do things the way they had been done before.
And, you know, that is the spirit of gymnastics, to do something better, but also to do something that has never been done before.
All right, let's see how the judges view the French threesome. Serrano, a 9.840. Those rhythmic scores, again, have been way higher than the artistic scores. Karbanenko gets a 9.475. Teza gets a 9.10. Well, the question now is, what is the Russian response? Leonid Arkayev has always had a golden one in big events like this. If you want to keep up to date on everything about the Olympics, there's a new show that leads all of NBC onto the Sydney Games and beyond. It's the Olympic Show, hosted by Dan Hicks, and it airs every weekend on CNBC. You're looking at Ekaterina Fokina, 17-year-old member of the Russian threesome here in the International 3-on-3 Gymnastics Championships. Final round, Al Troutwig, Beth Ruyak, Tim Daggett, and Elfie Schlegel. And Elfie, she is obviously going to perform with the ribbon. Where does this rank in terms of difficulty in rhythmic?
I think most rhythmic gymnasts probably have an easier time with the ribbon. And what I want to say about this apparatus is you probably associate rhythmic gymnastics with the ribbon, I think, because of the color, the length of the ribbon. It really is a beautiful apparatus. This is a fun piece for Ekaterina. It's from a Sherlock Holmes movie, she tells me. One thing you should notice is right there, she is playing up to the judges. So much of this routine has been choreographed in front of the panel.
The flexibility just almost unthinkable in this sport.
Tim, did you ever try this just for the heck of it?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Because of the length of this apparatus, it is difficult to keep it in constant motion. You're never supposed to see the ribbon drag on the floor.
She's never been to a world championship or an Olympic Games, so she, like many of the athletes here, thinking Sydney.
great choreography, great expression, not to mention very difficult and intricate skills.
Like the ending of the routine, the release of the ribbon, and then sort of a get back here.
The boomerang.
That's a Katerina Fokina. Now we'll focus on Alexei Bondarenko.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, for member number 2.
And although Blaine Wilson dominated the American Cup and easily won, this is a definite up-and-comer in the sport of gymnastics. Was second at the most recent World Championships. Has all of the goods to be in contention for several medals in 2000. Very difficult opening run. He'll do a double twisting, double somersault. Nicely done. A lot of power on that, just those small hops back. This pass actually worth double what that pass was worth. Very tricky combination. 3 aerial elements done in a row. Floor exercise is all about combining things.
Oh, this is awesome.
And watch this, Al. He'll go into what's called a Russian skill 3 times around on his hands. Very, very difficult and completely exhausting. Obviously, the strength part is a requirement.
His coach, Leonid Arkayev, says he isn't necessarily Russia's biggest hope because a country can't rely on just one person. And that's Arkayev being Arkayev.
Definitely. Bondarenko had problems with this dismount. As we said, very, very tough endurance-wise. A little bit better today, but still you see a little bit of fatigue. His legs really not strong enough to handle that landing. Takes a hop back and off to the side as well. That'll be a couple tenths of a deduction.
Well, Tim, his legs may not be strong enough, but his hands, those are made out of steel. Now the third and final member of the trio, Anna Kovaleva.
She's exceptional on this event. She was one of only 2 athletes at the American Cup that had a start value out of a 10.0, and at this point of the season, that is incredible. Watch this mount. What makes this routine different from all the others is she connects every single element. Interesting combination right here. Forward elements in combo. Beautiful. Difficult because it's a blind landing.
15 years old, first trip overseas for a major competition, so her head's filled with all sorts of things.
This element coming up really neat. Jump down to the beam with a 3/4 twist.
It's a little like the Teza.
A little bit her own rendition, I guess you could say. But as Elfie mentioned, the thing that is so neat about her is she does everything in combination. She just keeps moving. She also has wonderful lines, beautiful extension.
And it really is so refreshing because we're exposed to there again, another very difficult element, one of the toughest on this event. We're exposed to so many beam routines, that same element twice. And it's just nice to see an athlete take a little bit of risk every now and then. This is going to be a good score, just the dismount. Double tap.
Very nice string of performances by the Russian team here at the International 3-on-3 Championships in Fort Worth, Texas. And now Anna Kovaleva will join her 2 teammates, and the scores will be posted. And there's Arkayev, the powerful coach.
And look at this right here. This is a front flip with a half twist or a Barani. Very, very difficult. 4 inches wide, the balance beam. Not only is she flipping, but halfway through she starts that twist, makes it even more critical that you leave the beam exactly square.
She's smiling up there as if to say, well, guys, what'd you think? How did I do?
Well, it should score high.
And now here we go. The scores for the Russian team. 9.69 for Fokina with the ribbon. Bondarenko on the floor, 9.40. And Kovaleva, a 9.50.
That's surprising. That's low. Way too low.
28.590. So the Russian team is still better than France as the judges tabulate things. Coming up on NBC's coverage of the international 3-on-3. We'll see how the Russians hold on as the American team gets set to perform with Blaine Wilson, the anchor. We're back in Fort Worth, Texas. 2 teams down, 2 to go in the final round of the International 3-on-3 Gymnastics Championships. It's the U.S. team and the reigning senior national champion, Natalie LaCuesta. And she will perform with the clubs. This is a tough apparatus, isn't it, Elfie?
Yeah, it is. Because of the 2 clubs, you have to keep them in constant motion. You can't lose sight of either one. Now, this routine is very different from Natalie's first routine, which was a classical style. She prefers that. This is more of an upbeat version. Title of this piece is Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
And ladies and gentlemen, Tim Daggett has a confession he'd like to make.
Well, actually, Al, when you asked me earlier if I ever messed around with this, we toured after we won the gold medal in 1984, and throughout that entire tour there were rhythmic gymnasts with us, and all the guys and girls would mess around with some of the apparatus, and I didn't do it at all until one of the last stops in Philadelphia. I picked up one of the hoops and was using it like a hula hoop, and the next day, front page of the sports.
Serves you right.
I tell you.
So you lied.
Yes, I did.
Russia's in first place. France is next. Still to come, Ukraine.
One of the toughest things with the clubs is trying to keep the clubs in unison when you toss them in the air.
Okay, Natalie LaCuesta helped the U.S. get into this final round, and now she gets them off to a good start here. Next up for the United States will be Blaine Wilson in floor exercise. And this is a man who just did so well in dominating last week's American Cup. Let's go to Beth Ruyak.
Thanks, Al. Blaine Wilson won the American Cup earlier this month for the 2nd year in a row, and again, no one was even a close second. He's training right now 7 hours a day at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado and says he would sleep in the gym if he could. So we talked to him earlier before this event about what he wants in Sydney and about the memory that's still chasing him from last year's World Championships. World Championships in 1997. You're leading the world after 3 events, and you're standing on the podium waiting for high bar. What happens at that point?
I got up on the podium for high bar, and it seemed like an eternity before I got up. And I didn't get down off the podium because I figured no big deal. Then I started to question, whether or not I was going to do well. Was I going to catch my release and this and that? And next thing I know, I was on the floor, and then I just fell apart from high bar to floor to pommel horse. So,
was that self-pressure? Is that what got in there?
Yeah, that was pressure that I put on myself. Really, I mean, Pete wasn't putting the pressure on me. It wasn't the judges, it wasn't the TV. It was just myself questioning whether or not I could do what I know I can do, and it ended up backfiring on me. So,
isn't that remarkable, though, that change in how you were thinking completely changed that whole meet for you?
Yeah. It's amazing, but I look at it now and I look at it as maybe it wasn't my time to win. And that's why I changed my whole way of thinking, way of gymnastics. I believe that I can compete with anybody, even if I do make mistakes. It's possible to win. It doesn't matter.
That sounds much more like something driven from inside of you rather than something a coach is developing from the outside in.
No, that's something that I have. I don't like to lose. I wasn't brought up to lose, and I'm sure nobody likes to lose. But I mean, it's a big part of me. I hate losing, and I'm going to do everything possible to win.
What were you taught about competing and about competitors?
Well, when you're on the floor, everybody's your enemy. If you're competing individually, I love John Roethlisberger, but I want to beat him. I love John McCready. I think he's great, but I want to beat him too.
What about not working with Peter every day and not seeing him every day?
It's hard, after spending 5 years with Pete, it's definitely hard. he got me to where I was going, got me to the Olympic Games, you know, and he got my gymnastics to a different level.
Inside, Blaine, are you a nice guy? Are you a fighter? What do you think you are?
A little bit of everything. You know, I like to have fun. I like to be a nice guy, but you know, when it comes down to nitty-gritty, I'll be a fighter. You know, if I'm losing, I'm gonna try and get every point I can out of every routine. You know, but when it's all over, you know, I'm a nice guy. I leave it on the competition floor.
So what's the strategy between now and Sydney to fight your way to that goal of your own medal and a team medal?
It's all about going back to the gym and working on the stuff that you need to do. Especially with your coaches. You got to get with your coaches. I mean, I've only been with Ron and Vitaly for 2 months, and so far, we're working well together. And I need to find out exactly what it is that's going to make my routines start at a 10 and be at a 10. Even though I'm at a 10 right now, things could change in 2 years. You know, and that's what it's going to take.
Isn't it also about knowing it really can happen?
Yeah, you have to believe that it can happen.
And do you?
I believe every day that I walk in the gym that it's possible. You know, it is possible. We're better, we're better, but we can compete with everybody. So it just doesn't matter. As long as you believe that, you know, you'll be all right. If not, you should go sit in the stands and watch.
Tim Daggett, we've been watching, and how good is Blaine Wilson? How good can he be?
Well, actually, he is very, very good. He has got what it takes to be competitive in the world. And, you know, some people might be thinking it might be too soon. You have to remember gymnastics is a sport that is judged by people, and reputation matters a lot. So it's important for him to establish himself right now, a couple years out from Sydney, as one of the challengers for an Olympic gold medal.
What can Blaine Wilson do for the U.S. in this event? We'll see in a moment when we return to Fort Worth, Texas. A wink and a smile from Anna Kovaleva. She has had her score increased by the judges from a 9.5 to a 9.6, making it a little bit more difficult for Blaine Wilson and the Americans to challenge the Russian score.
Well, no question it was the most difficult beam routine we've seen so far, and I think the judges just reviewed the notes and realized that the start value was too low.
And talking about start value, Blaine started from a 10 at the American Cup, did 2 very tricky and intricate tumbling runs back to back. Here's the first one. Oh, but
what happened?
Right off the bat here, I don't know why, Al, but he just did a laid-out somersault for his third acrobatic element. He needs to do a 1.5 twist on that laid-out somersault to bring in those bonus tenths.
So this is not as difficult a routine that he used to win the American Cup?
Well, actually, right now, it is nowhere near as difficult as what he did at the American Cup. I don't know why. I don't think it's that Blaine is injured or that he's tired. Maybe he just felt a little bit off and couldn't make the correction. He scored a 9.625 last time out on floor exercise. It'll be nowhere near that with this exercise.
So it's the equivalent of a figure skater turning triples into doubles for an exhibition.
Exactly. That's exactly what Blaine's doing. But big dismount. Full twisting double somersault. Pretty good landing, just that hop back, but
Blaine Wilson for the USA.
Two-time national champion. Two-time NCAA champion.
now watch this. His first tumbling run right here. Moving forward 3 elements in a row. There's a laid out somersault. Now he usually does this with 1.5 twists. That gives him 5/10 of bonus. Right there, he only gets 1/10 back.
Blaine, one of the 10 finalists for the James E. Sullivan Award, top amateur athlete in the U.S. He seems pretty loose. He's with Natalie LaQuesta, awaiting the performance of Lindsay Wing. She'll be on the balance beam. Elfie, how has she fared recently on this apparatus?
This is a good event for Lindsay. Pay attention to her mount. She does a round off onto the board, and it's followed by 3 laid out elements. Very, very difficult to do. There's the first.
Oh, way, way off.
She's supposed to follow that skill by 2 other laid out elements, which would give her incredible bonus points, but of course the fall is a 5/10 deduction.
And another big skill right here after the fall. Very difficult.
She's just not on, having a really tough time today. Lindsay really impressed me last year at the team competition in Cincinnati. I just thought, wow, this beam routine has got it all. She really is known for taking the risk of doing a variety of skills, very difficult ones.
What's it like at this point? You've had 2 bad mistakes. Your brain must be exploding.
Well, part of her, I'm sure, wants to jump off the beam, but, you know, she has to finish up and try to redeem herself. I mean, that's a full 10th of deductions already, but, you know, it's tough, no question about it. She's still gaining a lot of experience. Her coaches had mentioned earlier that part of her problem is being consistent in competition, and we're seeing it. The last half of this beam routine, you wouldn't even know that Lindsay had fallen twice already. Very calm. She's picked up nicely.
That's Lindsay Wing for the USA.
So Lindsay Wing and the USA is done, and with the 2 falls, it's just an impossibility for them to challenge France and Russia.
Now watch this. Her shoulders are just out of line. She's supposed to do 2 more acrobatic elements. There is no way that she can even stay on the beam. Never mind do another 2 elements in the air.
Very difficult skill, this Arabian. Again, keeping the shoulders and hips in line with 4 inches of balance beam.
Every time you fall off, 5/10 of a point. That's a point in total. Takes Team USA out of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Lindsay looks quite miserable. LaQuesta in the rhythmic score 9.755. 7.275 for Lindsay Wing, as Blaine Wilson got an 8.85 for his floor exercise. So disappointing overall for this USA team, no doubt about it. Still to come, Ukraine, and the woman who was one of the stars of the opening round, Victoria Karpenko, the winner of last week's American Cup here in Fort Worth. Back in a moment. We take you back to the Olympic Games, the Centennial Games of Atlanta. The bronze medal winner in rhythmic gymnastics was Yelena Vitrichenko.
You know, Al, she was the buzz back in Atlanta. A lot of people thought that she would upset the Russians. She won the bronze medal. I asked her about the experience, and she felt in her heart she was very proud of the medal, but felt she could do better. Now she's set her sights on Sydney, the 2000 Olympics, and she's going to share that dream with her mother.
And here she is. Last nation to go. Right now it is Russia, France, the United States, and we will see Yelena and her 2 teammates in this international 3-on-3 gymnastic championships.
When you talk about exceptional rhythmic gymnasts, it's Yelena Vitrichenko. This is a very dramatic style floor routine. Of course, she could carry any type of style that you throw at her, but watch the type of emotion that she projects in this routine.
After the bronze in Atlanta, she went on and won the World Championship last year, 1997. So Elfie, she is accomplished. Her routine is beautiful, but I think there's one thing we have to address here. The fact that her mother is her coach, not a problem. The fact that her mother is a judge in this competition is most strange, and I think it strikes at the credibility of the sport.
But I think with this athlete, she's going to score high points regardless if her mom is judging at this meet or not.
But that's unfortunate because she is going to dominate this competition, but it's a little bit tainted, and there's no reason for that. Bad decision on Ukraine's part.
Well, she is a treat to watch, and I would, It would be safe to say she is superior in every aspect of her gymnastics. You know, the judges are looking for exceptional choreography, exceptional skill elements, working well with her music. There's her mother.
She looks proud. And, you know, a mom or a total stranger would give her a great score. It's just a very odd-looking scenario, no doubt about it. So Yelena Vitrichenko from Ukraine has started things off with a very clean program in rhythmic gymnastics. And now we're going to go to Valery Goncharov. And you remember in the opening round, Tim Daggett, we sort of called him the loose link, so to speak, in this trio.
Well, I got to tell you, we go from something that is soft and beautiful and dramatic, like the women's ribbon, and he's going to showcase what I think is the most radical skill in gymnastics, and it's not even that, and that's pretty radical. Check this out right here. Full twisting Kovacs. Oh! Unbelievable. I'm sitting here, I can't even keep still. That is so difficult. Just the dismount here. Triple back somersault, knees totally together. Wait a minute, what?
An odd little wobble.
Yes, I think he was a little dizzy, Al, to be perfectly honest. This is, it's just so incredible that this element is actually being done by more than one person in the world. Look at all that's going on over the bar with a full twist, and somehow he's got to be able to put his hands back on the bar. That's remarkable.
What's it like the first time you do that? That's what I want to know. Here's Victoria Karpenko, winner of the American Cup last week here in Fort Worth, Texas. So she comes in with confidence supreme.
It's amazing how she's handled the competition. Here's a young lady that missed out on the '96 Olympics. She missed out again at last year's World Championships with 2 broken fingers, and yet what's impressed me about her is just the way she handles competition. She is so cool about it.
Actually, the day before they were getting on the plane to travel to the World Championships, broke those fingers and couldn't go.
Her synchronization with the music is outstanding.
Not to mention the tumbling.
Well, say this, guys, the team from Ukraine held nothing back. They showed us the explosiveness in the high bar. They showed us the strength and choreography here and enormous grace in floor exercise.
Well, just like the Ukrainians, there they go again, setting the trends in women's gymnastics.
Anna Kovaleva of the Russian team now is just going to have to wait and see. Leonid Arkayev, the Russian coach, did Ukraine eclipse their score?
Well, that was an amazing floor exercise routine. As you mentioned, all of the elements. And look at this opening tumbling run. This is amazing. She does this like she's doing it out of a back handspring, Arabian double front, but watch the landing.
Just puts a stamp on it.
Kerpow.
And in sync to the last beat of the tune. Here are the scores now for Team Ukraine here in Fort Worth, Texas. They look pretty confident. Yelena Vitrichenko with the smile.
A glowing mom right there.
And they've got it. Here it is officially. Vitrichenko, a perfect 10. I'm so shocked with you know, used to be used to seeing them once in a while. Not these days. 9.050 for Goncharov, who's taking the biggest bow for the lowest score. Karpenko with a 9.750.
Look at those women.
How about rhythmic scores higher the entire competition, so maybe it's not totally surprising, but she gets a perfect 10. The unfortunate part, her mom, one of the judges again. So there it is, the total of 28.80. It was a long trip from Ukraine to the United States here into the middle of Texas. Thanks, Mom. And it was a successful journey. So, in a meet like this, nations make statements, and here Ukraine has made theirs. We're back in Fort Worth, Texas at the Convention Center, and it is all over in the 1998 International 3-on-3 Championships. Ukraine wins it by a margin of 0.11 of a point. France is third, and the United States well back in fourth position. Now, in 2 weekends of gymnastics here in Fort Worth, Texas, only one perfect 10, that from Yelena Vitrichenko. Let's go to Beth Ruyak, who's down on the floor with one of our winners.
Congratulations to Yelena, a perfect 10 for you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did it feel like a 10 out on the floor?
No, because it's carpet for artistic gymnastics. I can't do like in world championship, like in good competition.
But you have a big smile. Nina, you are her coach, and today you were a judge, and I know you have a special dream for the two of you. What is it?
Yes, Elena dream about Sydney, and I hope she can.
Is this your mom's dream too? She was a rhythmic gymnast long, long ago.
Yes, and when she rhythmic and rhythmic gymnastic not in Olympic Games, and now she can dream.
Congratulations.
Okay, Beth, Elfie, how about a final thought?
Well, I think it was a real treat to have the bronze medalist from Atlanta, and you know, she was so superior to the rest of the rhythmic gymnasts. What was there not to like? And her dream isn't over. She's going for gold in Sydney.
Tim?
Well, I would have to say, even though Blaine struggled a little bit on floor exercise today, he has established himself as one of the major contenders for Olympic glory.
All right, that'll do it. With Elfie Schlegel, Tim Daggett, and Beth Ruyak, I'm Al Troutwig. Thanks for joining us for Gymnastics in Fort Worth, Texas.